Hello and welcome back, everybody. I'm Tanya Johnson, registered psychologist, registered play therapist, co-founder of the Institute of Child Psychology. One of my favorite topics to talk about is highly sensitive children. The reason being, I am highly sensitive myself and I have a highly sensitive child. I actually have two kids, Una and Maya. Una is what we know in the literature of highly sensitive children, what we call an orchid child. My other kiddo is what we call a dandelion child. So with our orchid kids, they're just like what we envision for orchids. They need just the right amount of sunlight, just the right amount of nutrients, just the right amount of water, and these kids flourish. But when conditions are not optimal, we see that often these children wither a little bit. These children, relationship and environment is absolutely foundational to their well-being. Okay, and then we have our dandelion kids over here. So it's estimated that these guys are about 30% of the population. Our dandelions over here, another 30% of the population. Dandelion kids, we can plant those guys wherever and they're going to flourish. It doesn't matter what's happening with the rain, the water, the soil, the sunlight, they're going to do just fine. Kind of divided into 30, 30, and in the middle, we have our tulips, which is about 40% of kids. Under times of stress, we'll see that often they will slide more towards being orchids. They need more from their environments and more from their relationships. All of this is great when we go, okay, so at home, if my child is an orchid child, it's really important that we slow down, take that extra time, connect deeply, make space for the conversations that come after difficult moments, understand that they often need time to settle after we've been outside in the community, after we've been to the park or to the mall. They have to come back and settle their systems. Those are our orchid kids. At home, when we have far more control, we can do things in the environment and with relationship. But what happens at school? Honestly, my favorite researcher in this area is Dr. Michael Plus. I'll link him in the description below. He's absolutely fabulous. He's currently doing a lot of work right now around highly sensitive children and the school system. Because think about your typical traditional school. It's chaos. I go into those schools and I often feel totally overwhelmed. There's kids, there's noise, there's smells, there's lights, so much happening, lockers banging. How do our highly sensitive children go back into those environments day after day after day? There are absolutely things that we can do to help our children to thrive. The very first thing is, if we think our child might be highly sensitive, there are wonderful quizzes that we can take to figure out, do they fall into this category or not? This is important. High sensitivity is not a disorder. You will not find it in the DSM. It's a temperament. It's a way of being in the world. So sometimes these kids need a lot more. Sometimes we might hear things like they're too sensitive or they're neurotic or they have big feelings all of the time. Maybe sometimes, but the other part of that is that they are also often deeply creative, empathetic, wise beyond their years. They often have a vocabulary where we go, whoa, where did you get that from? Those are highly sensitive kiddos. I'll link the quiz in the description below too. So first we've got to figure out, do I have a highly sensitive child? Start to think about what they need, how they respond to stressful situations, and then go in and talk to your child's teacher. This might be for September for schools in North America, but go in and talk to them about what your child needs. Tell them about their temperament. Very often, our highly sensitive kids need quieter classrooms. They need to be put in seats in classrooms where there's a little bit more space, where there's a little bit more quiet. So not near the sharpener, not near the hallway. Very often these children also like being closer to the teacher. Research with highly sensitive adults actually shows adults who are highly sensitive, when they reflect back on their school experiences, found that structured classrooms were best. Classrooms where they got to work in small groups instead of sticking up their hand were best. Very often they had perfectionistic tendencies, and they did best when they had a relationship with a teacher. So I would argue that for all children, regardless if they're orchids or tulips or dandelions, They cannot learn if the teacher does not have their heart. But this is particularly true for our highly sensitive children who are driven by relationship. So first is getting that teacher to understand what they need, understand who they are when they become stressed, and then understand how do we come back and recalibrate to a place where they can actually learn. These children tend to really thrive when they have a group of close friends. Very often, these kiddos, because those deep emotional relationships are very important, don't often, this isn't true for everybody, but often they don't have a very, very wide group of friends. Their friendships tend to be quieter and more introspective. So it's about helping to set up those friendships, which again help drive wellness for our highly sensitive child. Are highly sensitive kids too, when something has happened in the classroom, they don't tend to do well if they're called out, if it feels punitive or shaming. So when something happens, we want to talk to the teacher about preferably getting them outside of the class and finding a time to sit down and go, what happened? What did you need? What did I need? How are we going to make this better? These children tend to be deeply reflective, so it's finding ways for them to start to think and then learn how to guide their behavior. Last thing that I would mention here with our highly sensitive children at school, so remember, we want those quiet environments, we want nurturing relationships, we want space to be able to repair, think about behaviors. The final thing that I want to just make you aware of is that these children do very, very well with predictability. So we need to have routine, we need to have rhythm within the classroom. If there are going to be changes, we need to talk to them about those changes ahead of time. And with all transitions, we want as much as possible to give them time to process, to think about how that transition is actually going to look. When they're younger, we might walk them through what that transition is going to look like, and to recognize that those transitional times may be a time of stress for our highly sensitive kids. To finish off there, the two things we need to remember with these kids: they flourish in warm, connected, supportive relationships, particularly when they're in environments that are quieter and more empowering to their inherent temperaments. I have a full length course on highly sensitive kiddos. I would love you to join me there. I'll link it in the description too. Have a great day.